To the United States next, where Republican Congressman Thomas Massie has been defeated in the Kentucky primary. Massie rose to prominence as an outlier within his party and was subjected to vicious and costly attacks by the U.S. president. Massie's stance against the Iran war and aid to Israel drew a surge of money from pro-Israel groups. The primary was the most expensive in history and offers the latest proof of Donald Trump's hold over the party. Take a listen to Massie speaking on his defeat.
I would have come out sooner, but I had to call my opponent and concede, and it took a while to find Ed Galrein in Tel Aviv. Welcome to the most expensive congressional primary ever in the 250-year history of this country. It's not just the most expensive. This thing went on longer than Vietnam. It started 9 months ago, and they didn't even have a candidate, and they decided they want to take me out.
We can now bring in our international affairs editor, Philip Turle. Philip, first we saw there from Massie taking his defeat with a pinch of salt, but what are some of the main takeaways from last night?
Well, there were six, in fact, states setting the scene ahead of the crucial midterm elections in this vote for primaries: Alabama, Georgia, Idaho, Kentucky, Oregon, and Pennsylvania. But without any doubt, Kentucky was the one that everyone was watching yesterday to see how this is going to play out, because Thomas Massie has been elected since 2012. He's a well-known member of Congress, and he was up against a man who has not been elected. He's a fifth-generation farmer. He's a former Navy SEAL. He's called Ed Galrein, and he beat Thomas Massie by 54 to 45% of the vote. So this was not just a win for him, but a crushing victory for the Trump-backed candidate. Basically, as you were just saying, a couple of things that were interesting in this. The first one is that this was the most expensive campaign in U.S. history at $33 million. And a lot of that money, as you rightly said, coming from pro-Israeli groups who were very annoyed about the fact that Thomas Massie was critical of Donald Trump's decision to go to war with Iran. And the other interesting aspect of all of this is that even though Donald Trump is losing support, he still has this very strong grip on the Republican Party. And it appears that whatever happens, even if you have been elected for years, an election comes up and you're critical of the U.S. president, then that will more or less sign your death warrant and someone else will come along and take your place. And that is just an example of what has happened here in Kentucky last night.
But, Philip, how do you explain that point you just raised? Donald Trump's approval rating, poll after poll show he's losing support given due to his policies, especially overseas with the war in Iran. So how do you explain that he still has this sway over the Republican Party?
I think there are a couple of ways of explaining this. The first one is that it's true that many Republicans don't agree with what Donald Trump is doing, but they know that Donald Trump is not eternal. They know that Donald Trump is facing the midterm elections coming up in November, and that could be difficult for him. And so they prefer just to remain quiet for the time being, not to ruffle too many feathers, and to just toe the party line, toe the Trump line, in the hopes that eventually Trump will disappear and things will become a little bit more easygoing. That shows that there is a definite fear of Donald Trump. He inspires fear, installs fear in all of those who may want to criticize him but don't dare do so, because they know that, like Thomas Massie, the minute they start criticizing the president, their political career could be over pretty quickly. What is happening here is even more surprising, if you like, because we've seen that there is growing resistance in the United States against President Trump. You can see his opinion poll ratings are falling quite sharply. A poll released by CBS puts him on 46% of approval ratings, down from 68% where he was last year. So there is definite criticism of the way Donald Trump is handling the economy. Many people are unhappy with the fact that they are not being able to make ends meet, and they're finding it difficult because prices are going up on a constant basis, and including the price of oil and transport. So those are things that are playing against the president. But at the same time, they seem to be willing to back him when it comes to a candidate that he will endorse, to the detriment of a candidate that was already well known to the public. So that is a very interesting aspect of all of this. Donald Trump appears to have got a firm grip on the party. He's faltering on the economy. He's faltering in the opinion poll ratings. He's criticised for the war in Iran, but he still has his grip on the Republican Party.